left. Lifelong fulfillment, vision in action. You left. Lifelong fulfillment, vision in action. Live.
And good morning. Welcome to another session of Vision in Action Live. We're happy to have you here today. I'm Jim Boswell. I'm your host, and I'm the instigator of the Lifelong Fulfillment Initiative for Personal Development. Doing that, I'm the author of Lifelong Fulfillment, Take Charge of Your Life, and its companion website. Joining me as co-host today is Dr. Michelle Maidenberg, PhD, certified therapist and author. And also joining us is our guest, Dr. Po Wu, who practices integrative medicine. He's also a personal coach, and he's also an author. So just to recap, on Vision in Action Live, our podcast, we focus on the expert knowledge and the solutions that it takes to build an individual personal development plan. These are the component solutions that allow you to construct and pursue the complete vision of your best life. So to do this, we bring you experts in every conceivable discipline that can help inform your thinking about your own journey to personal fulfillment. Again, welcome to this. I think we have an interesting interview set up for us today. So today we're going to discuss with Dr. Po Wu his expertise. He's a practitioner of integrative medicine, neurologist, a certified wellness and performance coach, and the author of a book called The Life's Coach Toolkit, ready-to-use strategies, principles, and activities. Welcome, Dr. Wu, to Vision in Action.
Thanks so much, Jim. It's a real honor to be here.
It's great to have you. Thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to hearing from you. In that introduction, if I skipped anything that you consider of importance, please feel free to flesh that out now.
No, it was a very kind introduction. Thanks so much again for having me on your show.
Okay, well, thank you. So it's interesting. So let's just start with a question that I think is pretty high level. What has inspired your transition from the clinical medicine arena to integrated medicine and then on to coaching? I can sort of imagine what it might be, but I'd like to hear it from you and how you arrived at that and why you think that's different in terms of being able to help your clients.
Yeah, certainly. So I started my career as a neurologist and sleep specialist, and I was working within the conventional healthcare system in the New York City area. It didn't take very long for me to become disillusioned with the way that healthcare was being practiced in the US, because it's very much based on efficiency and profitability, and those things oftentimes I found took precedence over actually taking care of patients and offering truly holistic care. It was very much symptoms based, and again, just get people in and out the door, right? So I quickly realized that less than a year in that I didn't want this to be my life. This is not why I went into medicine. This is not what I consider to be truly healing people. That sparked me to explore other integrative approaches like medical acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. Fast forward a little bit, I knew that I needed to get out of the system, and I took a big risk. I decided to start my own integrative medical practice. And at the time, all my friends and family thought I was nuts. I was crazy. My wife was still in training. I was the main breadwinner for the family. But credit to her. She was just so supportive. She knew how much this was tearing me up on the inside. She saw how hard I was working, and also how unfulfilled I was. So yeah, took a big risk. I learned everything I could absorb about starting a new practice, about entrepreneurship. I remember during all my daily commutes, I would just listen to audiobooks. I knew the importance of mindset and how important it was to surround myself with those voices that said, you can do this, you can do this. Because at my day job at the time, uh, I was surrounded by people who had a different mentality. It was very much about, um, just endure, what you're going through, and
Right.
just stay the course.
Yeah.
So,
Hi, folks. We're glad to have you back. We had a short break there. Let's go back to Dr. Wu now and finish out his transition from clinical medicine to integrated medicine and then on to coaching. Back to you, Dr. Wu.
hey, um, so picking up where we left off, I took a big risk and I started my own integrative medical practice that was outside of the insurance system. And fortunately, it really took off, and it was just a real pleasure to practice medicine the way that I always wanted to, right? Being able to spend time with people,
Mhm.
to understand them holistically, and really get to know them as people and individuals, like within the context of their own lives, right? And not just someone presenting with a certain number of symptoms, right? Because that's oftentimes just the surface.
Right. Right.
So fast forward to 2019, and by that time, both my wife and I, we had very busy careers. Both had thriving medical practices. Uh, we had two young children at the time. We did other things such as, you know, training for marathons. I
Mhm.
had run the Boston Marathon that year. It was a big achievement for me. I was even coaching the local school's cross country team. So life was really abundant. Like we were as just busy, busy, busy. On the outside, we looked like just this power couple to everyone, right? But actually deep down, what we realized that what we were missing was actually the most important connection, which was the one with each other, right? Um, and That was a really tough time because our that was when we realized that our marriage faced really profound trials, and it nearly pushed us to the brink. At the time,
Mhm.
we seriously considered separation and divorce, and we realized, oh my gosh, you know, um, in the process of pursuing all of these achievements, we inadvertently let our relationship suffer from neglect, right? So we had a choice.
Wait.
Do we let it break us up, or do we use it as a catalyst for growth? And
Right.
yeah, thankfully we chose the latter, and we decided to put in the hard work to really learn from it. That's when we invested in a couples therapist. We both sought out help, with individual therapists. That's when we both learned to confront our own, unresolved childhood traumas, and we learned how those patterns um, transmitted into our own relationship and in our interactions with one another. And it was just mind-blowing learning that all of these coping mechanisms and generational trauma, um, we actually inadvertently brought those into our marriage, right? Um,
Mhm.
and in the during the time of healing, that's when I got really into the personal development space. That's when I also revisited an important concept that I had actually been using for many years in my integrative medical practice, which was something called the five elements, which is a integral part of traditional Chinese medicine.
Mhm.
And I had been using this model for treating people's overall health. But because of what I was going through at the time, I decided to look at it with a new lens, and I realized, oh my gosh, all this time I was looking at it from a health and wellness perspective, but it's actually very applicable to the life coaching space and all that. And
Right.
it was just really, really fascinating to look at something that I actually been using for a long time, and I really used it as a blueprint to finding like life balance and fulfillment. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I had a quick question. First of all, so impressed how both of you were so invested, because I think
Mm,
that's sometimes so challenging, where one person maybe, you know, uh, they have difficulty kind of facing themselves and they're less invested in
yeah.
their partner. And I think it was inspiring to listen to you talk about how both of you were so invested in
Mm.
the process. So I do want to say that.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks so much, Dr. Michelle.
Yeah. And then the second thing, just to kind of let us know, an example maybe from the five elements, maybe,
Yeah.
one point, just so we kind of get a sense of what you're talking about.
Yeah, certainly. So
Yeah.
I'll give a little introduction to the five elements for folks in the audience who may not be familiar with this. So in short, there's five elements, and they're wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And in a nutshell, this is a holistic framework that has actually been used for millennia, especially in the East, in the realms of Eastern medicine, uh, nutrition, acupuncture, philosophy, psychology, even martial arts and architecture and urban planning, right? So each element essentially represents a vital aspect of life that needs nurturing, right? And the important thing to note for audience members is that all of these elements are necessary and they all support and harmonize one another, right? So I'll quickly run through like what the five elements are and what they each represent. So the first one is wood. So that represents things like growth, vision, and adaptability, right? So if you picture like a healthy bamboo forest, right? So bamboos, as you can imagine, they're very strong, but they're also very flexible, right? So that represents again that flexibility, the adaptability, um, visionary qualities in life, right? The next one is fire, right? So that represents passion, joy, connection with others, just be really being in the moment, right? If you picture the elements, fire is really the only one that you can't capture in a bottle. You have to be there in the moment to experience it. You can't take it with you in any form, right? Um, and then after that, we have Earth. Earth is all about like self-care and empowerment. Earth is about grounding and nurturing and empathy. Um, the concept of in order to effectively care for others, we have to first take care of ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to burn out. After that, we have metal, which is about clarity, organization, and letting go, right? Um, Precision, discipline, even forgiveness, right? Because that's important because we need to let go of the things that no longer serve us. We have to let go of the wrongs that we perceive other people have done to us, right? This particular element was actually very, very difficult for me personally, but I realize it's so vitally important, right? And for all of us as well. Lastly, we have water, which is about intuition, depth, and adaptability. And so, if the for folks, you might remember Bruce Lee's famous saying, which is be water, my friend, right? And that just speaks to the strength and the resiliency of water because water is able to really take any form, any shape, and it's about adapting with life's ebbs and flows and embracing uncertainty, right? They say that like change is the only constant in life, and I feel like a lot of people they it's very hard for them to grasp this concept, right? A lot of people are very certainty driven. Yeah. So we need all of these five elements, and most of us, well, all of us, we all have one that we're naturally strong at. We're naturally born with this strength, but we also tend to have one or two other ones that are very strong as well. And these are our natural strengths, right? Leaving two or three in most of us that are naturally weaker. And so it's important to recognize um, where our natural weaknesses may lie. And the approach that I like to take is that these five elements, it's not a zero-sum game, whereas if you focus on one, it's to the detriment of another. I think it's important to realize that oftentimes because of the interconnected nature of the elements, when you focus and you nurture one element, it actually supports all the other elements, and it actually makes your natural strengths even stronger. Right? So I know this might be a bit in contrast with what they might teach in the business world, which is focus on your strengths, right? Focus on that one thing to get to where you want to go to. Right? This is more of a holistic concept where everything is related to one another, right? And you can't go too long just by focusing on one thing, because it's going to create imbalance. You're going to get burned out. It's going to create problems. You need that life balance. Right?
So I have a question for you then. How do you tie that back to clinical medicine, or the two of them? Are we saying, for instance, that your strength in these five areas influences your health, or your health is a derivative problem that these five strengths can help correct or realign? How does that work in your practice, in your sense?
I love that question. This is why I love this model, and it's very different than what we were taught in medical school, right? So oftentimes when a patient comes in with a problem, it's often a sign of an underlying imbalance in the body. So over thousands of years in Chinese medicine, they noticed that people of a particular, let's say, elemental preponderance, that statistically they tend to have certain medical problems pop up. So, for example, people who are, let's say, metal dominant, statistically speaking, they tend to have more likelihood of having uh, lung or respiratory issues, allergies, asthma, right? And because the meridians pertaining to the metal element, they tend to more like run through the certain organs, like the lungs. People who are wood dominant, those meridians tend to run through areas where you tend to have muscle tension, headaches, migraines. So you tend to see a lot of that, right? People who are very strong in water, those meridians, when we talk about acupuncture and Eastern medicine, those meridians tend to are very dominant in the like genital urinary area. So these people are more prone to things like kidney stones, prostate issues, genital urinary issues. Right? So you see, they've noticed over thousands of years that certain people tend to have certain problems, which is very interesting, because that your body, when it shows symptoms, that's always a sign that something is out of balance, right? Yeah, and then it's important to look at the whole, not just, okay, well, here's a pill for that, or here's something to make it go away. Like it's the human body is much more complex than that. Our lives are much more complex than just symptoms.
So just a quick question. So, in terms of applying it directly to your work,
Yeah.
So you mentioned using it like in your couples work, with your wife, you mentioned, integrating into your practice,
Yeah.
right? So could you give like one example for, how you might use these elements specifically in your work?
Yeah. So if I'm because I do coaching now for folks who identify as like type A individuals or high achievers. Um, this model is really helpful because it allows people to see like where their natural strengths are, why they may be the way that they are, and also their blind spots, right? None of us are going to naturally be good at all of these, right? So And oftentimes, people come to me like they're feeling stuck, right? They're feeling stuck. They want to move forward, and they don't really know like what's the next step forward, or they feel like something is missing in their life or out of balance, right? Or they may be so successful financially, career-wise, but they feel empty in terms of like connections and love in their life. And so using this model is helpful because it allows them to see, oh wow, for example, my fire elements might be low because all of these years I've been focused on getting ahead career-wise, and all I do is look ahead at the next achievement. But when I get there, I don't feel fulfilled. I'm just looking at the next achievement. Like what can I achieve next, right? I think building that awareness is really important. And so, for example, in this very typical case that I see in clients, where they're so driven, so career focused, and let's say they're actually deficient in the fire element. Giving them this framework allows them to figure out ways, how can I integrate this into my life direction, right? How can I infuse more joy? How can I infuse more spontaneity while still preserving that drive, that ambition that I have, right? So, for example, like in coaching, right, we don't give answers. We believe that oftentimes the clients have the answers within themselves, right? Just asking the right questions to bring this out, right? So if you ask a question like, how can you incorporate, let's say, fire? How can you incorporate joy into these projects that you're working on? It might make them think of things differently, right? So that might steer the direction of their next entrepreneurial project to involve more fun, right? More chance to connect with friends or loved ones, right? So in other words, killing two birds with one stone, like hitting more than just one element at a time, right? So doing more rather than just achieving for achievement's sake, but how can you tie in all the other things that you want in life, right? Into what you're going for. Yeah. So that's one example, right? Another common um, situation that this comes up in is with relationships, right? So oftentimes our partners will have different elemental strengths, and recognizing each other's strengths and weaknesses, it really allows you to cherish the differences that we have with one another, right? So just as a personal example, I mentioned earlier that metal is naturally like one of my weaker elements, right? I'm not the most organized. I'm not the most neat person. But that happens to be my wife's like strongest element. So, and I'm very dominant in wood, so I'm very good at coming up with new ideas. I can think ahead 5, 10 steps. That's one of her weaker elements. So that's an example of where you see the differences with your partner, and you actually learn to love that about one another. Like, oh, hey, we're different, but we actually complement each other in a yin yang manner, right? She's very helpful in keeping me on track, right? Helping me filter out the noise so that I can move forward. With her, I help her out by oftentimes showing her new ideas and ways, uh, creative approaches to new problems, right? So our strengths complement each other in a way, and then I think when we see this in our friends and our relationships, I think it really nurtures this appreciation for one another. Yeah, just despite the differences.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question, kind of as a practical matter. You're practicing in Vancouver,
Mm.
so you're part of the Canadian healthcare system. as opposed to, you said you started out as a clinician in New York.
Mm.
I know those systems don't really resemble each other too well. So did you move because of the opportunity to do that in Canada as opposed to try and do the more difficult path of maybe doing it here in the US? Oh,
Oh,
by
that's
the
good.
way, I applaud your bravery. I think it's really great.
Thanks. So that's a great question. I currently don't practice clinically in Canada. My wife does. So this is but this allows me to transition into uh, coaching, right? Holistic health, wellness, and performance coaching. I still do maintain a medical practice in New York that I supervise from a few thousand miles away, but obviously I'm not the one who's actually providing the care. But I do get to go back every few months and meet the team. Um, but yeah, it's a different healthcare system here, and unfortunately, um, they make you retake all the tests from start, which goes sort of boggles my mind. But instead of being down and upset about it, I took it as, hey, this is actually a blessing in disguise because it forces me to sort of reinvent myself, and I believe that change, overcoming obstacles, it's really important. That's how we grow. That's how we move forward. We find ways to constantly evolve and um, just adapt to change and see what's around the corner.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're doing it. I'm sure your patients and your subscribers are very happy about that. Dr. Maidenberg, did you have any last minute questions before we begin to wrap this up?
Yeah. I guess if there's kind of words of wisdom, something that you really hone in on that you want your patients to get out of
Mm,
your practice, right? Like
yeah.
words, yeah. Who you're all about. Let's put it that way. If you had to
Yeah.
kind of summarize that, what would you say?
Um, I would say, embrace embrace all the elements within you. You don't ignore them. Embrace your imperfections, your shortcomings. Oftentimes, the key to happiness and fulfillment is um, going places where it might be a bit uncomfortable, right? But oftentimes, your greatest dreams and fulfillment are on the other side of that. Right? Yeah, and I'd also say um, just yeah, take a moment to be grateful each day. And that's how I start my day is with a gratitude practice.
Hmm.
I find that when we're feeling grateful, and we start listing things that we're grateful for, it might be difficult at first to list even one or two things. But once a couple of things come out, then you will notice that it's more and more things just come out, and then it just becomes a flood of gratefulness. And when we're grateful, neurologically, we're not able to be in states of fear and anxiety and depression. And just a really good way to start the day. And that way, it really serves us, but ultimately also when we serve ourselves, it allows us to best serve uh, those around us.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And your book, just to mention your book,
Mm,
yeah, what's the crux, if you had to summarize again, people who are interested in buying your book,
mm.
yeah, what it's about and why people would be interested in reading it.
Yeah, so I'm a co-author in this book called The Life Coach's Toolkit. So I'm an author in there with some other co-authors. So my chapter is touches on the five elements. There's also a lot of other great chapters, right? Because I don't believe that any one person or one source has all the answers, and I highly recommend that anyone who is interested in the realm of self-improvement go out there and just listen to all these different voices, right? Because we all have gifts, wonderful gifts and perspectives and life experiences to share, and take it in, take what's good and what works for you, and then create your own beautiful blend that is meant for you. Okay? So yeah, Life Coach's Toolkit is the book that I'm a co-author of. In addition to that, I'm also part of a children's book project in a series called The Adventures of Kai and Coco. And we recently came out with one book during the Mid-Autumn Festival, but we're going to be coming out with more in an ongoing series. Yeah, so that's something else to look out for.
Okay.
That sounds so exciting.
Yeah.
So Dr. Wu, where can people reach you?
So folks, if they're interested in learning more about me, or if they want to take a personality quiz to find out which elements that they're naturally strong in or might be a little bit weaker in, you can go to my website. It's www.drpowu.com. So that's drpowu.com. And yeah, you'll be able to find a link to my quiz. And then I also have a podcast that I co-host with a good friend of mine called the Rich Life Podcast. So yeah, if folks are interested, yeah, feel free to swing on by.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us today. Dr. Wu, thank you. We really appreciate your perspectives here. And Dr. Maidenberg, thank you for helping us out here today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim and Dr. Maidenberg. It was a real pleasure to be here. And yeah, it was a real honor, a real treat. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
Well, I want to thank our guest today, Dr. Po Wu, for his perspectives and insight. And it was a pleasure to have Dr. Maidenberg on as co-host. Thanks to both of them. And thank you for attending Vision in Action Live. We hope you found this informative. We certainly did. Future episodes that are in the planning are looking at things like lifestyle transitions, long-term care strategies, coaching solutions, veterans, personal finance, divorce, and retirement, to name just a few. You might be interested to tune in for some of those. Our podcast focused on interviews with subject matter experts and people that are leading self-directed lives so that you can see exactly what one can accomplish with the tools that we're providing. Check out the newsletters, podcasts, and extensive reference materials at lifelongfulfillment.com. These are all free to you. And you can find us in the podcasts on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast channel, and also now on KFRED Internet Radio. Again, I'm Jim Boswell. If you need to reach me, I'm Jim Boswell at lifelongfulfillment.com. And until next time, think about how your life plan is coming together. Thanks. Have a great week.
Lifelong fulfillment, vision in action.